Now I have to handle two things. Let's see. So at home I learned to say hello when you come into the room, so hello Athens. My name is Ralf Wiechers. I'm a nomad based in northern Germany. On the web you can find me at Driving Ralle. In Germany it sounds really English, but in international it's like, what? It's a weird nickname. But at least everywhere on the web when you find this name, usually I'm behind that. As I said, I'm a nomad, and since 2014 I'm traveling as a full-time nomad. And every year since then I ended up in Greece somehow. Sometimes on islands, sometimes or oftentimes in Athens. I've been to a couple of the WordCamps here in Greece, and I'm very honored to be here today and able to speak here. As I said, I'm a nomad and not a travel blogger, so I actually have to work. Or work in a sense like most of you probably as a developer. I do these from co-working spaces all over the world, and I'm a big fan of remote work. I do this work with clients that are mainly based in Germany or in Denmark. It's broken. So, what is my work? I do WordPress consulting, and extra to that, I'm also the CTO of a startup in Indonesia. It's called homesweethome.travel. It's a booking platform. You will see some of the details later on. I do WordPress since 2010. So it's been a while, but since the beginning, WordPress has, for me at least, the same superpowers. It's multiple different things that are fascinating to different people. And for me, since the very first project, custom post types and taxonomies were the most interesting. Because we are talking about a CMS, a content management system, and this is content. This is the actual part of the system. All the other things are also very important and should not be neglected. But for me, this is the core part of the fascination about WordPress. So I picked one of my two favorites, it's taxonomies, and we want to talk about that today. We are in Greece, so I looked up the word, it's actually ancient Greece, and has had a meaning of order or arrangement back then. Nowadays we think about it more like a grouping or classifications. In biology we all learned about animal groups and these kind of things. This is what is nowadays considered a taxonomies, like grouping of stuff. Of course, we are here on a conference about something on the web, so we are actually talking about grouping of website content. What kind of content can be on a website? Usually, we are talking about a blogging system, blog posts. But nowadays, with WooCommerce, we also have products or other things on our websites. A lot of companies, they also show, for example, their team members on their website. So what can we group stuff into? So for blog posts or news articles, we can group them by locale, like in which area something is happening, if it's country or more local. We can group products together, like we have a big clothing store, so we group all t-shirts together or shoes. So we group these elements together. Or multiple team members make one team. You know these kind of groupings. You probably all have used them. When you wrote a blog post, you somehow add a category and some tags. So they are quite vague. This is also, I think, why a lot of people don't really know what to do with them. You add these things, and then suddenly there's this red flag technology. You don't really know what's happening in the background, but it's there, and the client loves it when these kind of things are there. But in the background, something else is happening. And the same example here, I was talking about groups of team members. We can now have a drop-down. Can you see the mouse? Yeah. Here's a drop-down, because it's a picture, it doesn't work. But I can here now pick a different team where I want to see who is in that team. But this is also a way of where it's useful to have groups of people. So I was talking about groups, and to make the terminology clear, one group, so one team or one product niche is so-called one term in WordPress. So we have a few words, yeah, one term can have a lot of items in there. Like one team can have as many people in there as you want. So we have the taxonomy of categories. And the terms in there are, for example, work, hobby, and family. And in there, I can make as many blog posts about my work as I want. So this is the important terminology to remember. Taxonomies are the groupings. One taxonomy is is a grouping, and the term is the group itself. So what are these terms or these groups? They are connections between blog posts. So every blog post about technology, of course, their connection between each other is that they are all about technology. But their terms can also be details. An example for that is, for example, the author of a book. It's an information, but it's also a connection with the next book the author releases. So taxonomies have a bit of a hybrid being to them. And this is why we have to talk about taxonomies versus metadata. We all have learned everything that's not the main content goes into post-meta or into metadata. But sometimes it's not the right way to put information or bits of information like an author into the post-meta. The reason for that is if these information or bits of information are shared. One author or one publisher can have multiple books. So it wouldn't make sense to put the name of the publisher into the post-meta again and again and again. So therefore, taxonomies have been not invented, but are used. But something like the price or the count of the many pages are in a book, these are informations, they are really more detailed and usually are not shared. I mean, of course, multiple books can have the same price, especially nowadays, like pricing is not very creative anymore. But still, it's not really a thing where you say, oh yeah, let's see all books for $9.99. So a rule of thumb for it, if you want to filter by it, it's a taxonomy. If you want to sort by it, it's a post-meta or a meta. So we have books, so we want to have all books from one specific author. Then we want to filter for it, so it's a taxonomy. When we see all the books by one author, we want to sort them by price because we want to buy the cheapest one. So it's a metadata. This is a rule of thumb. You can, depending on the system you want to create, mix these up a bit. But you shouldn't have to have too many terms. If you suddenly have something with 100 terms or something, maybe it's a bit overdone. So what are taxonomies? Taxonomies are groups, or groups of items with shared details. That's the very basic. So we are here to talk about WordPress, so let's look how taxonomies are working in WordPress. The categories, as we know them, not technically, but the categories are in WordPress since version 1.0. So it was inherited from the previous CMS. In 3 years later, the post tags got introduced together with the functionality of custom taxonomies. So you could actually make something like reviews and you can attach these things together. Another 3 years later, the point was reached where WordPress, for me, got a complete or became a complete CMS. You got the custom menus, we got the custom post types, and there were under the hood were more improvements done to the taxonomies. Then in 4.2 there were the term splitting. I don't want to talk about that. It's a complete talk for itself. And wait, I just said something about custom menus, and they are actually a taxonomy. So before I was talking about we can group blog posts together, and you know when you go on your main menu on posts, there's the flyout and it says categories and tags. But the custom menu is under design. So how can that be a taxonomy? It's a simple reason. There are two ways of a state of a taxonomy. It can be public, That's something like categories and these kind of things, and they can be hidden. So I said public things are categories, post tags, post formats, and all these kind of things. You usually can tell if a taxonomy is public if it has an archive. So if there's a URL you can open on your website and it suddenly lists all things technology, work, or however, then you say this is a public taxonomy. It's a bit of oversimplification. There are more details you can rule by it, but this is for the first glance. And there are private stuff, like the nav menu, or maybe some people remember the links in WordPress, link categories. There was something like that. They are really hidden, and there's not many features that are actually using it, because some features maybe use it, but you don't know about it. So taxonomies can be used for things the user should not see, but are technically taxonomies. What I would recommend to use private taxonomies for are like internal stuff, so things that should not become public, so you make them private. As I said, they are technical helpers for something like a menu or other kind of things, and they're usually used in advanced use cases. A private taxonomy doesn't do anything for you in the front end. So if you introduce one of these, you have to do code to actually make use of it. So as I said, for hidden taxonomies, you definitely have to do coding. So we've seen earlier, there are two kinds of widely used taxonomies in WordPress core. There are categories and there are post tags. It's really often seen that people confuse them, use the same words in both of them, and for how you really do it, and to learn what is a tag or a category, there are blog posts explaining this in detail. I don't want to go into that too much, but the interesting thing here is that categories can have childs. So, for example, what we had earlier, with the work and the hobby, I can separate my blog post about my hobby into gardening and 3D printing, for example. This way, I can send a link to someone, yeah, here, read all my blog posts about gardening. It's easier than saying to the person, yeah, here's my whole blog, and just pick out the things you're interested in. If they are just interested in gardening, you can send them a link just about this one topic. And there are, in tags, there is nothing like that. There is no child tag. There are child categories, but no child tags. Also, one really important thing is when we talk about taxonomies, one taxonomy can have multiple post types. So we have a company website, and we have team members that we are listing, and of course every team member works somehow in a department. So we have 3 terms, but we can also have the same department can has job listings, or they publish a blog post. So why should we invent another taxonomy for the same thing? So we can actually share the same taxonomy with multiple kind of content, really. So that's the 3 main things I think you should know about taxonomies in WordPress. They can be public, then they suddenly have archives and do a lot of nice things for you, completely automated. They can be hidden, then you have to do the work. They can be hierarchical or flat. Depending on your use case, I will show a use case for it. You have to pick one. Sometimes it doesn't matter. So then it may be just a question of what interface you like more. And the taxonomy is not limited to one. So post tag is actually a bit misleading. Post tag can also be applied, for example, to pages. If you add a little snippet to WordPress, suddenly your pages in WordPress can have tags or categories. Also, one thing, it's really important to oftentimes pick taxonomies over post meta is speed. Because when you want to get all books by one author and you do it via post meta, you are actually running a query about your whole post meta table. And depending on how many entries you have or what kind of plugins you're running, this can be a really, really big table. And for taxonomies, there are specific tables where all these things are stored in a really fast way for you to retrieve. So if you want to filter things and you want to have it quick, use a taxonomy. The whole system is quite old. This is also the reason why there are not a lot of bugs in there anymore. There are limitations, but the things that are there are very robust and you can use them and they are well integrated in all kinds of things. There are taxonomy queries inside the WP query and you can do many things with it and this is why you can rely on it and you can extend it to your use cases. So far the theory. And one thing, because I always like to do something in my presentation everybody can do, and later we see use cases where you definitely have to do some coding. I would also like to give something to the people who are not able to code themselves. I mean, most of the hands were developers, so for you it's less relevant. Every category, for example, can get a description, and suddenly, when you add these to your categories, these archives get relevant for search engines. So you can actually make use of the terms. It's not like written technology there, but you also can increase your standing in search results. So if you want to stand out and do more about SEO than a lot of other websites, you should add a description to your terms. This is the standard UI, but if you install one of the many search engine optimization plugins, they will add interfaces here and more stuff you can do about these to help your website rank. And because not many people are doing it, this is an easy way to get better results as your competitors. So I said we're going to do something more advanced than that. And this is where the point where I always says with a website with more content is more fun, especially when we are working with a CMS. Because when we have more content, we can actually do more with all the things we have stored in the database. Just displaying it all the time, always the same, is quite boring. There we don't need a CMS for. There would be a static website would be faster. So the idea of a content management system is that you change a piece of data once, and everywhere where these kind of data are used, they get updated automatically. We learned earlier how you can use advanced custom fields for these kind of things, but I want to focus more on the taxonomies and the archives today. And all these kind of things I'm going to show you are based on the premise that the actual owner of the website or the business who is running the website can do stuff on their website on their own. So therefore, I'm a heavy user of widgets and sidebars. Because in that way, I don't need to change code if the content team has an idea or they want to run a promotion or something. They are able to place widgets in the right place on their own, and I don't need to do anything. And this is where the idea comes into where archives are actually landing pages. We are going to great lengths nowadays to create manually landing pages to specific topics and everything. But actually, WordPress creates these kind of landing pages for you automatically. And the nice thing is it updates it automatically when you publish a blog post, a new team member, or anything. You just have to make it into a really valuable place and a point of entry into a topic of your interest or the interest of your visitors. So we had that earlier. A company website has jobs, blog posts, and team members. They are somehow related to retail. Traditionally, a lot of themes bring these kind of layouts for an archive. They show all the latest news or the latest blog post about retail, and that's it. If you're lucky, they maybe have a sidebar and they show the same sidebar in anything that is blog related. So no matter if there's like all kinds of topic mixed in this archive, or if it's just retail, it's the same sidebar. So the absolute minimum you should do is to create a sidebar that is just shown if there are articles shown that are related to retail. In this way, you can, for example, show the retail team, you can display, job offerings and all these kind of things. And here now you are creating a point where all kinds of informations around retail are displayed. This makes it easier for someone who is interested in your or in the retail about this website to read everything and go from here deeper into the things that they're interested in, and they don't have to filter out the non-relevant parts. This is a very simple layout. No? You can create these kind of layouts with as many sidebars as you want. Somewhere in there should be, of course, still be the blog posts we want to, or the archive is based on. But you can put in many sidebars into one archive. And I've never seen a theme you can buy or download somewhere that actually does this. So you usually need to create a child theme or create a custom theme if you want to do these kind of things. But I think with so many developers in the room, creating a child theme and putting these kind of things in place is not too hard to do for you. WordPress has special templates for these kind of things. And depending on what you want to do and how many sidebars you want to integrate, you can pick the right template for that. They are built in. You just have to learn the template hierarchy, and then from that you can go and make the right templates with the right amount of sidebars for your client or for your project. As I was said earlier, I use a lot of widgets, I use a lot of sidebars, and my clients are usually using the customizer to maintain the content of their sidebars. Because I have sometimes something like 50, 60 sidebars in one website. It's not a problem, it's just a problem if you try to go under design, widgets, and try to manage these things. It doesn't work out. So when you go to the archive page, say customizer, and then the customizer just shows the sidebars that are actually on this site or on this view. And then the content team can actually put in the widgets they need and actually using. Oftentimes that also means that we create custom widgets for these clients. Because all these standard widgets are usually not useful. I mean, you can still create call to actions or small text elements with the standard widgets, but most of the time I create custom widgets. And there's the point where you also have to really work with your client and the people who are later maintaining the website. Oftentimes I've seen projects where the content team, the people who always, in the long term, over 3 to 4, 5 years, have to run the website. They see the website maybe after it was designed or something. But we should talk to these kind of people in the beginning, because they are the people who have to work with your website every day for 3, 5 years. So you are, as a developer, maybe in the beginning you're busy with one of these projects about a year. But if you need to work with something like a website every day, because you are the content team of these kind of websites, you should also have a word in these kind of projects. And I can just say, do the concept really, really early. Because when you have a website that is growing and you get more and more data, it gets really, really hard to do these kind of things later on. An example, in our startup, we started with 25 listings. Now we have over 900 listings. So when we now want to do something, oh yeah, let's create something, or like let's update the product description, we don't want to open 930 objects and put something in the description. we had to sit down before we created any kind of listing and think about what are things we want to be able to sort by and to filter by. That's why we created 17 taxonomies. And some of them are public or used for public purposes, and some of them are just for internal things. So there are, for example, internal sorting things, or we know, for example, who has created what kind of information inside these. So think about these. Taxonomies are really helpful, but you have to think about them beforehand. When you try to add them afterwards, it's a lot of work. Yeah, for example, these are some of the taxonomies we are using. And as I was saying, we are a booking platform, and you usually know when you book a hotel for yourself, you may be a bit picky. Oh yeah, but I want an AC or something. Especially we are operating in Southeast Asia. Their ACs are quite a nice tool. So because we have so many taxonomies, we can give you very, very detailed filters, and we can advertise very precisely, because we can filter our listings very precise to certain target groups, for example. One nice thing I've never seen somewhere else is, besides with hierarchical taxonomies, is that you can, with one click of your content team, you can actually get multiple parts of information out of it. What I mean with it is this. We have a taxonomy, it's called regions. And the very top region is the country the listing is in. Then we have the island, because we are operating in Indonesia, there is a lot of islands. Then we have in every island, or on every island, there's a region, and there is the, I call them sub-region, the technical name is that, but I cannot say the word. And what I build is helper functions. So when I now need the name of the island the listing is on, I have a helper function there. I just call it, and it gets me back Bali or Flores or something. And I can do something like that, where I can say, where's the thing? Here, this is the region the listing is in, and here's the island. And we added this widget, I think, last year. And with adding one widget, suddenly we had fresh content on 930 pages on our website. It's something it's impossible to do with page builders. And it's also the reason why I'm still a big fan of templates and coding, like really creating your own templates and coding the things instead of using page builders. We use these kind of informations, and we are coding a lot of templates ourselves. We are, for example, are able to provide you, based on the taxonomy of the item you put into your cart, we are advertising stuff in the checkout. Because these are things from the same taxonomy. And so you see the checkout is rendered per user. It's not a cached site or something. So here we need the speed of the taxonomy to find a matching transport, for example. We wouldn't be able to do this when we have to run through the post meta table of 930 objects and even more. I mean, also all the orders and everything goes into the post meta table. So it's a huge table. And the taxonomies allow us to search these table or the information very, very quickly. And we also use them in emails and in a lot of places more. So to allow our content team to work on the website every day, I mean, I'm not working, I have other things to do. I'm not working every day on this startup, but the content team is working every day. And that they are not calling me every day, oh, we have to fix something here. I put widget areas everywhere. So they can do their thing, and I can sleep, because actually they are 8 hours before ahead. So when they are working, I'm actually asleep. Then you say like, yeah, but there is this Gutenberg. yes, it's there, but it's not yet on the level where we can use Gutenberg for these kind of things. Maybe in 2 years I can come back and give you a presentation, taxonomies with Gutenberg, yeah, but we are not there yet. So we have to be a bit careful with these kind of things with Gutenberg, but it's all the things I've shown you are possible since years. So, and also when you do these kind of things today, you are not preventing yourself to move to Gutenberg in the future. So you should start now and get your things up and running, and you can switch to Gutenberg later. So until Gutenberg is involved enough, we have to stick with these kind of interfaces in the back end. That's also one really nice thing. When you generate or you register your taxonomies, all the back-end interfaces are written for you. You don't need to have whatever plugins to generate meta boxes or something. For hierarchical and non-hierarchical taxonomies, the interface is generated by WordPress for you. You don't have to do anything about it. As I said, use the things that are in WordPress. You have, of course, you have to do some coding, but actually you don't need any extra plugins for these. There are plugins that allow you to use a clickable interface in the back end to generate these kind of things. If you like these kind of plugins, use them. I'm not a big fan of them, but it's a personal thing because I find it hard to deploy things that are generated by an interface. They usually end up in the database, and it's hard to deploy these kind of things. So I prefer things to be in code, so I can deploy them in Git or via Git. And I said, everything is there. The filters are really deeply integrated into the WP query, and everything is there that you need. If you want to read more about taxonomies and how to register them, go to the plugin developer handbook. I don't know why it's in there, but it's there. And I would say it's time that you start grouping your content. If you have any questions, we have time for questions now.
That was interesting, and most of the developers in here, I guess they were ready to applaud. I have a small question, if you've come across that. It's been a while since I've done it, but if you share taxonomy in multiple content types, custom post types, the overall count number, it counts for all of it. Has that changed? Like I can see how many, let's say, how many times does my term is being used in job board and how many times it's being used in books or something like that? Have you noticed
it? When you register a taxonomy with a post type, then it suddenly shows up below the name of the post type in the main menu. And then if you click on it, and then you have the row of the term in this list. And the number at the end is usually just the number of the terms in this post type.
Great.
So if you actually have like 5 jobs and 5 blog posts, there's 2 numbers.
If you say it in multiple taxonomies, that's what you said. If you say it in multiple taxonomies,
yeah. That count number, if you go under each post type, it's global. So and that's actually in the database. You know, it's the count. It's in the database. But I would expect it to change at some point. So tomorrow we have contribution day. You're welcome to come and fix that. Any other questions?
Thanks, Ralf. Quick question. How fast is using taxonomies, but when you have to use term metas? So I guess that all the explanation you did is because you are not using custom fields for terms. Is that right?
We use term meter, but I usually don't filter by a term meter. I usually somehow, I mean, because a post is not attached to a term meter, but the ID of the term is when you have a post object, you have the IDs of the terms. And I can, of course, when I have the ID of a term, I don't have to query for a term meter. I guess term meter query is slower than when you just get the ID.
If we have to search using meta, we fall again in the same problem as searching
post
for
meta.
post
Yeah.
meta.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ralf.
Anyone else?
Someone in the back?
Some in the front, maybe?
I mean, I'm still here the whole day, and I guess I'm there tomorrow. So if there are any questions
find
coming
him
up,
and ask questions.
Yes.
It's really interesting stuff, and I'm sure that most of the developers here have actually been through that, and sometimes receiving legacy code which goes the other way around, it's a small nightmare. So anyway, thank you very much. It was very beautiful.